Hi, in this video I just want to remind you how to use the StatCrunch groups feature to load data into StatCrunch rather than type it, and then show you a quick demo on creating scatter plots, doing a linear regression, and then just discuss some of the ideas on that problem number 1 from Tech 4. So in order to load data, you want to be on the My StatCrunch page and then click on My Groups. When you do that, you should see the Meaningful Statistics group pop up. If you don't, that means you have not joined it yet, so see the video from Chapter 3 on how to join groups. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You always see a few data sets here, but not necessarily the one you want. We need, what does it say there? We need number 50 from 4.2. So if we click on 20 data sets, we'll see all the ones that I've shared. And here's the Chapter 4 number 50, which is the one we're looking for. So I'll just type on that, or click on that, and that will load that data set in. I think this is definitely worthwhile rather than typing it. I did just finish grading Tech 3, and there was a student who had typed the data rather than load it, and she ended up making a typo, and that messed up her graph, it messed up her calculations, really kind of ruined that problem for her. Alright, so once the data is in there, we want to go ahead and start doing our analysis, and Part B asks us to do a scatter plot, so we're going to click on Graph and Scatter Plot. Our X variable is going to be the practice midterm score, which we're trying to use to predict an actual midterm score, so we'll put the actuals as the Y variable. Then kind of scrolling through the options we need, it said to put a title in the directions, and it also said to click on draw horizontal and vertical lines, so I'll click on those, and then here's my title. So let's see, we're doing a scatter plot of exams, and this is by, put your name right there, and then click on compute, and so we get the scatter plot. So when we clicked on the draw lines, that just gave us these grid lines here. That's going to help us in a few steps where we need to draw a line, so it'll just be easier to plot points and draw those lines if we can see that. Always remember you have the option to resize graphs in StatCrunch, so kind of come up with something that you think looks good. Don't make it too small, make sure you can still read your title, and then go ahead and capture this graph. So we could do like an options copy. I'm more of a fan of the Snipping Tool than that, so I'm going to go ahead and search in my bottom left bar, which you cannot see, for Snipping Tool. Click on that to pull it up. You'll probably get a gray screen on your computer. Mine just pops it up and I have to select new graph. So I'll do that, the screen grays, and I do a quick drag. Okay, and then I'm going to do edit copy, and I can go ahead and close that up. Don't need to save it, and switch over to my Google Doc. That was part B, asking me to do the graph. So always click below the B, that way the B stays above your graph, which is where a label should be rather than at the bottom. So Control V, and I get that graph in there. Feel free to make this a little smaller if you feel like it's kind of a waste of paper to have it that big. Just make sure everything stays big enough that it's still reasonable for being able to read. Alright, and then Part C asks us a question. I'll let you go ahead and answer that one. It's very similar to our collaborative, so you can have a look at that. It also comes up in the homework as well. Part D says to have StatCrunch calculate the linear regression. So I'm going to click back over onto the StatCrunch page that has the data. You can leave the graph or close it. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And now we want to do stat, regression, simple linear. And similar to the scatter plot, our X variable is practice, Y variable is actual, and let's see if there's any other options. It says to select those, and then it just says click compute. So there's a bunch of other info, but we don't need any of that, so we can just go click compute on that, and that will give us the information we need. So it turns out the information we need is just right there. All this stuff down here is just a repeat of the stuff up here and some extra stuff that we don't understand yet at this point in the course. In fact, we don't even need this last line. It just says to copy down to the R squared. So you can just highlight that and then do a normal right click copy or Control C, and then click on the StatCrunch, or sorry, your Google Doc, that was part D, and then you just go onto that and Control V and paste that in. So that's what it's referring to when it says that you only need the information down to r squared. So I would suggest copying it that way instead of copying the whole window, which has a lot of extra stuff. Just to point out, if you click the arrow key, you see that same scatter plot we made, but with a line drawn in already. I purposely did not ask you to copy that because I want you to draw the line by hand this time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just close this window up. This was the only information we needed from that, and I've already moved that over to my Google Doc. So actually, I can just leave this open. It's no big deal, and I'll click on the Google Doc and go back over there. So part E says to use the equation to predict the average actual midterm score for a student that scored 16 out of 20 points. So here is our equation right there. And for part E, I'm going to want to use that to make a prediction. So when we make predictions, that's going to be a y hat equals type of equation. So y hat is a symbol that is not an obvious one to type in Google Docs. So what I'm going to choose is insert special characters, and it'll list some stuff. Maybe y hat's there, maybe not. I don't think so. But if you click in this search by keyword box and you just type the letter Y, it'll show you special characters related to the letter Y. Here's an uppercase and a lowercase y hat. If you look at this, apparently that's not y hat, it's y circumflex. So if you want to be fancy and start saying that from now on, you can, but we usually refer to that as y hat. So I'll just click on that, and you'll see over here that that has inserted that character. So I can go ahead and close this, and then I can start typing the rest of that equation. So I'm just looking at that equation right up here, and I'm going to type it in, 28.459951 plus 3.2618822, and then times, and what I want to multiply it by is the input that they asked me for, and they said for a student that scored 16 out of 20. It's important to note that the 20 is just there as a reference for you, so that you know that that was a student that scored 16 out of 20, which is a good score, as opposed to 16 out of 100, which would be kind of a bad one. But if you look at the data that we typed into StatCrunch, these were not, there's the out of 20 isn't written there anywhere. Just this is 14 out of 20, there's 17 out of 20. So when we make our calculation, the out of 20 doesn't go into that at all, we just put the 16. And I'm going to stop there and let you come up with the rest of that. You'll probably round your answer, so I guess we could insert equation and look for the approximately equal symbol. And where is it? There it is. And then you can click out of that and you can type your answer. And I think they gave you some rounding directions on that. They said to round it to the nearest tenth of a unit, so you can write that in. And they ask you to do that again for 4 out of 20, so you do that as well. I'm going to leave those to you so that you have to figure out those answers. But I want to mention a couple other things that will be helpful as you go on to try and finish this tech project. So one of those would be on part F. It says to plot these ordered pairs. This should come out to be somewhere, I believe, around 80. So let's say it came out to be 16 that I put in and 80 that I got out. Then after I print out this report, I would go over to 16. If this is 10 and 15, 16 is about here, up to 80, which would be right about there, and I would hand draw an X. And then when I do the ordered pair 4 something, whatever that comes out to be, I would hand draw another X, and then I would draw the line in. And when you're done with that, it should look kind of like this graph, only you will have marked your points with X's that you use to draw the line, and you will do that by hand. I suppose you can do it with technology if you can figure out a way, like in a paint program, to draw the X's in the line, but I would just expect that you would draw that in by hand after you print the report. And anytime it's your plan to go back and do something to a graph by hand, I think you should note that somewhere on the direction sheet, circle that or something to remind you to go back. Just mention a few other things. When they ask you to interpret the slope and r squared and the correlation, all those things can be found in this little section. Here's your slope because it multiplies the input variable. The correlation is r. R squared is written a little funny, but there it is. So you've got all those things. As far as interpreting them, I would just recommend that you go back and you look at the Mustang problem in the notes and you compare those interpretations with what you need to do here as a guide. So this isn't all finished off, but hopefully that gets you started and gives you an idea on what you need to do on all those pieces. Alright, good luck.